Hello and welcome to Real Geeks Presents The B-Roll. I am Crash and Burn, and with me as always is Mike Montgomery.
Oh, what's going on, Internet?
Hello, and yeah, it's been an eventful week in terms of nonsense in show business. First, we have to step back into the past and a story that we've been following since more or less the first new episode of The B-Roll. We got to check back in with Will Smith.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. As much as we all needed a break, a fair bit has happened. There's a fair bit that has been said, and frankly, more so now needs to be said. Now that more stuff has come out.
Yeah, it's been for a story that, quite frankly, should have been one and done and over weeks ago. It just keeps chugging on.
My attitude with this whole thing from the start was that in reality, nobody involved in this looks good. But at the point we're at now, wow, does no one involved in this look good? Well, the first thing I wanted to hit was, of course, the simple fact that literally the day after we recorded our second week of coverage of Slapgate, the Academy handed down its sentence to Will Smith of a 10-year banishment from anything Academy related. That means the Oscars themselves, any Academy related events, parties. Basically, he has to stay home and watch the Oscars on TV like the rest of us. There is the question of how much of a punishment that actually is.
Especially after you've won. Okay, yeah. I don't have to show up for a thing that I no longer really need to try for. Awesome. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do I get to skip, math class as well? That'd be cool. How about just the whole day? How about I don't have to come into school anymore? Cool?
Now, of course, reactions have varied wildly. Some people say that the 10 years is just right. Some say it's not enough. Frankly, I for one say that it's far too much for what it was.
Yeah, especially since we're seeing worse behavior from other people in the acting world currently that is not getting that kind of response, and definitely will not be getting that kind of response.
No.
It's for sure coming through that the Academy was personally deeply embarrassed by it, and so they were looking for some revenge. I honestly doubt that this will last a full 10 years because, as you say, it's uneven, it's ridiculous. It's currently kind of sidetracked Will Smith's career, but I presume that actually he's fielding a lot more work now because people who felt that he was untouchable likely now are giving him scripts. I joked on Twitter earlier that if I was Roland Emmerich, who just had an absolute shit show of a last film, Moonfall is, I believe, financially his worst performing box office.
I think, yeah.
Not even people who enjoy Roland Emmerich films like myself enjoyed that. It was tired. If I was Roland Emmerich, I would be on the phone every single minute of the day trying to convince Will Smith that there is a road back, and that road goes through Independence Day Part 3. Come on, man. Come on. He doesn't have to pay him as much. He can squalor. They can put Oscar award winning actor Will Smith slaps aliens. They could play with it. They could roll with it and completely take the bluster out of the Academy entirely. And there's no chance that it undermines anything because it's the Academy's certainly not going to touch this movie. It's a Roland Emmerich, Part 3 disaster sci-fi flick.
Oh, yeah.
It's garbage. It could be fun.
It absolutely could. But there is one problem with this scenario, which I think actually makes it that much more fascinating, which is the simple fact that they killed Will Smith's character off screen in the second movie. And so I would love to see just what Roland Emmerich would come up with to bring him back.
Oh, it's real simple. All you have to do, you could put this in the trailer. This is the trailer, okay? This is the trailer. We're somewhere in the Midwest, and we see a rocket coming down. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, Warner Brothers is restarting Superman. Cool. Rocket crashes, farmers drive out to it, and Will Smith, in his flight suit from the 90s, steps out, and they say, "Welcome to Earth." And that's it. That's the trailer.
Nice.
You can figure out the blanks later. Is he a clone? Is he a robot? Is he actually the original one? The other one, was he transported? It doesn't fucking matter, because from that moment on, you have everyone's attention. The rest of the film can be an absolute piece of shit. But everyone knows two things. You're rolling a lot more tongue-in-cheek than expected, and Will Smith's in the thing. You finally have Will Smith and humor again.
There you go, yeah.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Instead of course, Bright, which is not going to happen now, because while Netflix is cratering on their own terms, they are cutting off Will Smith's projects left and right.
True, but also at this point, I would have to question whether or not a Bright sequel was ever really going to happen in the first place.
Apparently, it was planned.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Bright was released, and everyone went, wow, that was, at best, really uninspired. You tried just the tiniest amount and went, looks good enough for me.
Now, you had brought up all these other crimes that people have committed where the Academy did not really react in any way at all. And the responses that I tend to see to that is essentially, well, yes, but those other people, those crimes, those alleged crimes were not committed on the Academy stage, so that's different. And to me, it's like, listen, if your only argument for this 10-year sentence compared to what the John Waynes and so forth of Hollywood have done, especially the Roman Polanskis and the Harvey Weinsteins, which, I'm sorry, those are so much worse than a slap.
So much worse than a slap.
If your only argument there is the location of the event, the fact that that makes a difference to you, I have questions about you. You remember after we recorded the last B-roll, I said I had something where I was just dying to get your reaction?
Yes.
This is it. Because I got curious. Now, we know that the LAPD at the ceremony specifically said that was textbook battery. You say the word, we will take him to jail right now. I got curious. I looked up the penalty in the state of California for battery. California Penal Code 242 PC defines the crime of battery as any willful and unlawful use of force or violence upon the person of another. Now, near as I can figure, the slap falls under simple battery. And Crash, you're going to love this part. Simple battery is a misdemeanor offense that carries a maximum sentence of up to 6 months in a county jail and a fine of up to $2,000.
A county jail. Oh, that would never happen.
Oh no. It would be more than likely the fine route or something, but 6 months, again, 6 months.
month in a county correctional facility, that would actually be way better for his career.
Yeah.
Because one, he would be absolutely safe there. Two, it would more or less be like an institutionalized vacation. There would still be major issues, but his fame would protect him throughout. There would be a media circus outside the county correctional facility the entire time. He would be able to sell that story entirely from top to bottom. It would give him a sense of authenticity, despite obviously not being a hardened criminal whatsoever. It would give everyone in that prison at the moment a story that they would sell. It would itself become a film at some point about how the night that an Oscar winner won his Oscar, he also got, sent to 6 months in a Hollywood county jail. Honestly, I believe in terms of business decisions, not necessarily personal decisions, moral decisions, or any of that, in terms of pure cynical business decisions, Will probably should have taken the charge.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, it's not up to him, but to anyone arguing Crash's point here, I would like you to point you toward the movie Molly's Game, and Crash's scenario is basically the equivalent of that movie. Like, not only could Will Smith potentially turn this whole thing into a film, the last time something like this happened, it became an Aaron Sorkin film after Molly Bloom was arrested for running a high-stakes poker game.
And even personally, I have worked on a project like this. I was briefly attached as a writer to Conrad Black's project that was going to be like about his time in prison. And the only reason that fell through is he got sent back to prison. It's fascinating the way that you can spin something like that if you just know what you're doing. And it's not that Will Smith didn't know it. Obviously this comes down to Chris Rock choosing not to involve the LAPD in the life of another black man, which is the best decision in this situation. But in any other situation, it potentially could have been used for his career in a great way. Now, I wonder how that would compare with Honolulu and Hawaii's misdemeanor and battery charges. Has once again, Ezra Miller has been arrested, and once again, their career is on the line. Now, so I'm reading from a Associated Press story, and the way it lines out, just like, here's a great, terrible day in the life of Ezra Miller. At a private get-together somewhere on Big Island, Ezra threw a chair at a woman. She was, I believe, 29 years old, and hit her with it while they were told to leave. There's a whole lot of speculation about why and who and all of that, and I don't want to go into that. But 12 hours after being arrested for that, Miller was appearing in court via Zoom to plead no contest to disorderly conduct in order to pay $500 for the previous assault a couple of weeks ago at the Margarita Village in Hilo, which they are no longer allowed to be around. At the same time, they were charged with harassment. So they dropped the harassment charge and had them pay just the $500 and, of course, the resulting ban. But on top of that is a traffic citation after police were called to a dispute in downtown Hilo last month where Miller was uncooperative, refused to leave an area, and obstructed a sidewalk. And this is just just dealing with that, and then the next thing comes, and then the next thing comes, and then the next thing comes.
Yeah, no, it's like I'm sitting here and I just keep thinking, now, I know that people keep wondering what you have to do to get Warner Brothers Studios to react to a scandal. And somebody needs to explain to Ezra Miller that the response to that was not supposed to be hold my beer.
No, not at all. And I completely understand why Warner Brothers is slow to respond. Their company just got bought. There are people who are moving into the offices who are like coming across a memo on their desk that says, "Sorry about Ezra." And it's like, what have I walked into? What have I inherited here? Of course they don't know how to respond. They hope that this just goes away so they can release stuff that they have had built up from before the purchase.
All the stuff that I can already tell you right now, these new executives are going, okay, no, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. It's almost symbolic of how Warner Brothers was handling the DCEU before the merger, that the star, the center point, so to speak, of their upcoming film that is meant to fix everything that has already been fucked up is now fucking up.
Yeah, there's not many people left standing in that franchise who doesn't have something going for them in terms of critique or bad behavior, or just in general people kind of over it, or they're over it. Gal Gadot has, of course, a lot of complicated issues when it comes to Israel and Palestine.
A little bit, yeah.
And she is one of the clearer, I guess, the least shit caked of that entire franchise. And it seems that Jason Momoa might be hitting eject and getting the hell out of there, and looking for greener pastures, or cubier pastures, if the Minecraft casting rumors are accurate. And to which I just want to say, one, cool. I never really played Minecraft much, and I understand that it has very little to do with someone like Jason Momoa, aside from he's a fan of it, and it's not Chris Pratt. So, good. Yes, do it. Maybe he's just heading him off at the pass. It's just, I heard Chris Pratt was going for this, so I just, nope, mine.
Which is a scenario that I would love to have happen, because in terms of voice work, someone needs to explain to Chris Pratt, he is not Peter Cullen, he is not Frank Welker, he is most certainly not Maurice LaMarche. Chris Pratt needs to stop.
He definitely needs to understand that when people initially were excited for him, it wasn't because he's a great comedian. It was because he seemed to be a classic puppy dog kind of man-child comedy figure.
Yeah.
The more we learn about him as a person, the less interesting he is, and the more infuriating he is.
People are very much just going from, oh, to, ugh.
I still love him as Star-Lord.
Yeah.
But that's only because Star-Lord is a man-child dickhead. They don't try to make him the good guy, necessarily. You know, he's a dick, but he's not 100% an a-hole. That's the best way to describe Star-Lord ever. And it's also kind of how you want to describe Chris Pratt. You want him to be a dick. You don't want him to be an a-hole, but he is an a-hole. And so, damn it.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you live a dream.
Speaking of other a-holes, what else is going on at Warner Brothers?
Oh, well, you may regret that transition, because what I was actually about to say was, do you remember, I think it was on our last show, when you were talking about how they need to bring in a Kevin Feige type figure to try to right the ship that is the DCEU.
They sure do, and I sure did.
And they agreed with you.
Huzzah! I'm right. Give me money.
Because shortly after that recording, it came out that David Zaslav, the CEO of the newly combined Warner Brothers and Discovery, is basically going over everything DC related. Now, the article that I'm looking at from Variety focuses exclusively on the feature films, but as I understand it, this is everything from the feature films all the way down to the CW. Zaslav has apparently already been vetting candidates with, quote, experience in creating and nurturing blockbuster intellectual property with a goal of potentially finding someone to serve as a creative and strategic czar similar to what Marvel has in Kevin Feige.
Czar. A DC czar.
Now, considering the last time Warner Brothers attempted this, we got Zack Snyder.
Oops.
Anything is a step up.
Anything is a step up. And I actually, just before this, watched Movie Bob's, I guess he called it a ramble, but in which he went on about how what Warner Brothers needs, isn't a creative, isn't necessarily a filmmaker like Zack Snyder or like someone from the comics like Jeff Johns or someone from animation like Bruce Timm. They need, well, quite frankly, Kevin Feige. And Kevin Feige is a producer. He is a boss. You need someone who is business first, who understands the property, but business first. And they put the hammer down.
Now, once again, funny you should say that, because I'm going to take this opportunity to keep reading. Now, one of those candidates included Emma Watts, a former top film executive at 20th Century Studios and Paramount, but it does not appear that Watts will take the job. One insider suggested that Zaslav was less interested in finding a creative guru and more eager to hire someone who had the type of business background needed to keep all the different factions at DC working more harmoniously. This merger might be the best thing to happen to the DC properties.
This merger is probably the best thing to happen to any Warner Brothers property, because they're going to eject everything that is not working without ego and look across a wide spectrum for answers and people who can help them refocus, recenter, and reacquire. It doesn't matter if it's the failing DCEU, it doesn't matter if it's the failing Harry Potter franchise, which is currently going down in an incredible blaze. It doesn't matter if it's their attempts to turn the Matrix into something else, or their absolutely mind-blowingly bad Space Jam franchise ideas. Like, they have this entire plan, or they had one anyway before everything went to shit, where Space Jam would have been like the intersection of all of their other properties, much like you saw a lot of their IP, well, all of their IP in the cheering stands of the game in Space Jam 2, if anyone listening actually watched Space Jam 2, and it's not just my suffering. My suffering and pain. Don Cheadle was great in that, though, by the way. But it was supposed to be kind of a nexus to which you could interact with all of these IP. And I'm just so happy that all of that is not going to happen anymore. We're still going to get what they produced so far from DC. It's still going to roll out, and they're going to find a way, hell or high water, to make some money off of it. But so many bad ideas just went poof into nowhere, and I'm ever so happy for that. Ever so happy.
One last segment that I want to hit here, just because there's an interesting balance in this last bit of, oh dear God, and that's what we've been saying all along.
That's what we've been saying all along.
Discovery insiders, it goes on to say, now, as you mentioned, they've had financial success with certain properties. Here they do list specifically Aquaman and the Batman. It goes on to say, quote, referring to the DCEU, it lacks a coherent creative and brand strategy. That's what we've been saying all along.
Yeah, everyone has been saying that, and it has taken since 2014 for them to learn this.
Discovery believes that several top-shelf characters, such as Superman, have been left to languish and need to be revitalized. That's what we've been saying all along.
Everyone has been saying this, except for the assholes that they've been listening to. And it's funny. It's actually outright hilarious that after eight years, let's say, of the DCEU, the biggest success to come out of it is Aquaman. It's like a sick joke.
Yep.
If you went back 10
really
years
is.
ago and said, yeah, you could totally go, you're going to go whole hog into the cinematic universe. You're going to spend this much money. And they look at you and go, and how's it going to work out? And you look them dead in the eye and you go, oh, honey, Aquaman's going to be pretty good.
Now, conversely, I did mention in Oh Dear God section,
Oh, dear God.
quote, they also believe that projects like Todd Phillips's Joker are a shining example of how second build characters from the DC library can and should be exploited. That's where I'm kind of going, oh dear God. Conversely, they finished by putting in brackets, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is another example. That one I'm with them. That Joker one though.
So actually, it's funny that you bring that up, because it was also a thing that Movie Bob touched on, and the wording of that is done, of course, to incense people and set them off. But
Yeah.
what it seemingly really means is that we're going to look at doing individual properties. So the Joker film, you don't need to see anything else Batman at all or Joker to enjoy it. It's just here's the character, here's the situation that we're going to use. So expect to see, presumably, a lot more standalone, and the way that they'll likely do those standalones is how Birds of Prey worked, where theoretically, and yes, technically, it is within the DCEU and it's part of a continuing canon, but you could just have that movie and you don't necessarily have to have seen any other film, because it's only about one character, and the first act explicitly goes through her relationship and her breakup. You understand the motivation of the character at this point, and everyone else you meet from that point onwards is introduced in that film. And that's probably where they're going to go. They're going to less look necessarily for something that is like interconnected continuity, but options for making singular successes out of characters that otherwise they wouldn't have gotten the focus to. So what my reading from that is, a lot more peacemakers are coming down the line.
Yeah, and that I could totally see.
Speaking of the Thor trailer, have you seen that? Did you see it? Did you fall into the pit with me of demanding, please, Taika, please give us something, please, Taika, please, I'm starving, Taika, please? And he delivered a trailer that has nothing. so nothing. There's no details in it, and I'm just eating all of it. Just yes. Oh god. Thank you, Taika, for my one shot of Jane Foster. Yes. Oh, we're eating that tonight.
Oh yeah, no. I did see it, and number one. But like the two things, which is first and foremost, like I said, I saw it, and I also watched most of the double toasted reaction to it, where Corey Coleman did bring up a wonderful point that this is a teaser that is precisely what a teaser should be.
Yeah. Yeah, as in it teases you, it entices you, it makes you giddy. It doesn't give you anything. It just makes you a little curious. Maybe interested, possibly aroused.
Oh, you know what? We're going to go from there right to the second thing that I was going to bring up, which is that speaking of the Jane Foster Thor specifically, I would like to take a moment to just say to my celebrity crush, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I'm sorry, my eyes have wandered.
See, that's why you have to remain Team Portman. I have remained solidly Team Portman ever since Phantom Menace. I have not wavered. I have not bucked. It pays off. You have patience with Portman, and she pays off. I have invested well, and now I am reaping the benefits of my fandom. With Natalie Portman's big, beefy arms.
I personally have had a thing for Mary Elizabeth Winstead ever since Scott Pilgrim. But at the same time, with Natalie Portman here, number one, for someone who was able to go from being so furious with the script, I believe, for Thor 2, that she wanted out of the MCU entirely, to going to being willing to put in the work to create that. As a man who finds muscular women attractive, Natalie Portman, I thank you and I salute you.
I'm actually rereading the entire Jason Aaron run for another podcast that I was asked to appear on and talk about like the business behind this trailer and that decision and how comic books deal with like legacy and women characters. And I'm about, where the fuck am I? I am 4,000 pages into it. I swear to God, it's immense. It's practically a decade's worth of storytelling to go through the Jane Foster Thor and the fall of Thor from worthy to unworthy and the war Thor and the War of the Realms. And all it has done, much like Natalie Portman, is make me so angry at Thor 2 for utterly wasting Malekith. Now, none of these comics existed at the time when Malekith appeared in Thor 2. All of this started after that run. It was essentially, holy crap, that sucked. Does anyone have any great ideas to use these characters? And Jason Aaron went, I've got so many. And then 8 or 9 years happened that I swear to God just finished recently. I'm currently at the part after, spoilers for anyone, after Thor gets his golden arm. I'm not going to say anything else after that because it's major spoilers, not only for this, but potentially for the film series. But the main villain in that comic run and the entire War of the Realms is Malekith. And he is hilarious and terrible and fantastic and manipulative and just the worst piece of shit that every time he's on the page, you want him to suffer so terribly, and he never does. And we're never going to get that because they shit the bed with Malekith in their admittedly worst film of the entire series, with an actor who is known for, when stuff shits the bed, going, fine, Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. None of you are cool. I'm out. Like, you gotta admit, Christopher Eccleston holds a grudge.
Just ask the BBC. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there was something you were right with last week with what's happening at Warner Brothers Studios right now. Unfortunately, news has come out about something that we got rather wrong.
Damn it.
And it kills me to say this, but I'm referring to our discussion about what could happen in the second season of Moon Knight. And the reason that I say this is that Moon Knight and Hawkeye were both submitted for Emmy Award consideration under the limited series or anthology category, which seems to indicate that there are no plans for season 2.
Which makes sense because we actually have never seen a season 2 from the current MCU Disney Plus run. There hasn't been a single thing that has gotten a second season. We really shouldn't even be considering them seasons.
Actually, not entirely accurate.
Damn it!
They did specifically say at the end of Loki that Loki would be back for season 2. You remember that early scene from, I think it was Thor 2, where there's a bunch of actors putting on a play for Odin?
Yeah. So, I remember when it was confirmed that Matt Damon is back.
Matt Damon is back as actor Loki. Melissa McCarthy as actor Hela, Sam Neill as actor Odin,
Yes.
and Luke Hemsworth as actor Thor.
The smallest
They're
Hemsworth.
all listed.
Big shout out to Luke Hemsworth, the smallest Hemsworth. He's tiny. It's adorable.
True, and also there's like just the very simple. I'm seeing these people listed as actor versions of these different characters, and I'm going, knowing Taika Waititi, that might be an opportunity to sneak in a Tom Hiddleston cameo. But also at the same time, with the Guardians of the Galaxy already there, and you're also introducing Greek mythology to the MCU, bringing Loki in could, at the end of the day, just be a little much.
And yeah, like, we're already going to get some sort of major twist in this that we haven't seen. And it's not going to just be Thor is capable of also being a woman. We're going to get some sort of monumental shift.
Yeah.
If we know anything from Taika Waititi projects, it's he presents mass like apocalypses and sea changes in the softest, nicest way possible. Ragnarok literally had the end of all of Asgard and every other Azir aside from, or rather Asgardian in this case, aside from Thor and a variant Loki. The dude will burn everything if necessary to tell a single story, but he does it in a charming way, and I just can't wait to see what burns with this. And honestly, considering the glitz and glamour and the 80s tasticness of this, I truly want it to end with a reborn Asgard, but like super 80s hair metal Asgard. Just all out.
And Asgard, that would basically be live action heavy metal.
Yeah, live action heavy metal as drawn by Jack Kirby.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's sounding even better.
Speaking of Marvel, though, a little closer to home, we got episode 4 of Moon Knight, and this was the last episode that critics received advanced screeners to. And considering the table flip it does, yeah, I can completely understand.
Yeah.
I was so confused. Why would you send 4 episodes of like a 6-episode series? Surely you get all of the information you need to critique the entire show in that. No. Everything is
No, not
weird.
even close.
Oh, you thought you knew stuff. Ha ha. No.
Oh yeah, no, that ending was an incredible cutoff point.
So Stephen, Mark, and Layla survive their excursion through the desert and get to the tomb of the last avatar of Amut, who turns out to be Alexander the Great. I like that.
Why not?
That was a cool twist. Especially when you have someone like Stephen approaching the tomb and working it out and figuring it out. And it's like, oh, that was just like fun. That was adorable to watch. He thinks he's Indiana Jones, but he's just a kid in a candy store. And almost immediately following that, they get shot. Mark and Stephen die and wake up in a mental hospital.
And frankly, that was the best execution of something like that I've seen since Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, like, you could kind of feel it coming. It's like, okay, surely when you play with a character who has known mental issues, creatives will go that place. They will go like, okay, you have to at some point wonder, is this real? Is this reality? Is this unreality? And the fact that there are like levels of realms and planes of existence in the Marvel universe makes this only even more goddamn confusing.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe this is all happening. I don't think that the show is a hallucination of Mark and Stevens, like some people are saying. I believe that this is the current representation of the processing of the Egyptian afterlife. So you come here as an avatar of one of these gods for processing. And it's a slow process because death is really traumatic and there's a lot of people going through it. So you just gonna have to wait for your turn.
I tend to stay away from fan theories in general. I mean, there was one I saw today where someone was speculating that the mighty Thor that we see at the end of the trailer is not Jane Foster, but is actually Hela. And now you can join me in mourning the loss of brain cells, pondering that one.
How dare. At the same time, we got to see the split of the mentalities. Steven met Mark met Steven. They hugged it out like they did in the comics, and this entire issue seems to be pulled from a very specific run and couple of issues of the comics. And a lot of people have been speculating. I know you just said you don't like fan speculation, but they were separated now because they are 2 different spirits, essentially 2 different entities in the same body. And when Amut tried to have them judged earlier in the show, said that, no, you can't do it. They're in flux. This is a manner of getting them judged. And Mark's going to probably get judged badly. And Steven's going to be able to continue on or carry on as the Moon Knight, while Mark's going to have to either die, disappear, be sacrificed, or something like that. That's where my mind goes with this. Especially with the end, when we meet that hippo.
Yeah.
The hippo at the end of the episode.
If I could just go back to that fan theory for a second.
By all means.
The logic works, but I truly hope that the whole Steve and Mark being 2 different spirits thing is actually really not the way that they're going. And my reasoning for this is recently on my TikTok, I've had videos coming up on my For You page from people who actually do have DID, and sharing their thoughts on the show up to it would have been up to about last week's episode, and talking about how the show has gotten so very, very much right, and even the stuff that they've gotten wrong, like someone with DID would not see one of their alters in a mirror, for instance. Even then, they acknowledged, like, that's something that it's wrong, but it's something that you have to do for television. So they're letting things like that slide. So with that, in terms of representation, I would rather see them stay as like two alters in the same body.
Instead of, like asserting that people with DID have, say, multiple people literally in them. Yeah. No, that's a good point, and probably a very important thing to say.
You see them going, yeah, they're getting a lot right, and we're glad this is a thing. And I'm going, good, please. I want you to have this, and I want this to be as meaningful for you as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing of the current Marvel lineup and the ones that are coming down the pipeline. Everyone gets a superhero. Everyone. That's special.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, like even in Thor, we're getting a lot of queer representation. They have, of course, the suggestions and the fact that canonically both Star-Lord and Thor and Hercules are bi. So there's that whole thing, and the loving gaze that Hemsworth gives to Pratt. That's truly fantastic. And the fact that King Valkyrie, is looking for a bride. Valkyrie is, of course, queer, and I want to say gender non-conforming in the sense that she is a king.
Yeah.
But most importantly, speaking as a trans woman, Meek is wearing a lovely dress skirt work combination. The first theoretically trans woman in the MCU has swords for hands. We did it. We did it. Yay. Swords for hands.
Just the fact that you would be able to say, yeah, our representative hero has sword hands. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Makes me immediately just negate any counterpoint that I might even take the time to think of. Right. Sword hands just trumps everything.
Yep. Bizarre Marvel thing of, the DCEU can't seem to get, a Batman movie to go over $500 million at the box office. But we have a sentient transgender. I don't even know what Meek is, quite frankly. And some sort of insect that has swords for hands.
Yeah.
And you can buy 5 Funko Pops right now of that character. And they are super popular. And Korg's there, and he's got his pants. Korg's pants. The fact that they just keep escalating into sillier and sillier, and everyone loves it, is beautiful. And it means that when we get to stuff like Moon Knight, you're allowed to do that. They're allowed to have a character who has DID, who, within the relative boundaries of comic book characterization, is accurate. Within the relative bounds of comic characterization. I mean, This is still a world where an Egyptian god was able to change the sky over modern day Cairo. So big air quotes and a lot of room to breathe. But still, realistic relative.
Yeah, the more the merrier. Like, for me, as a demisexual male, I want to see a demisexual Marvel character for the sole purpose of just seeing what they would do with it.
Looking at Marvel Comics and what is currently available for you, we'll not go into DC because they have to figure themselves out first. who would you
True.
want to be that character?
Honestly, haven't read comics in so long that I don't know how to specifically answer that. But I think at the same time, what I would say is definitely someone who is not in the MCU yet, just so that they would have complete and total freedom with the character.
That makes a lot of sense. Allow themselves to do carte blanche whatever they need or want to with it. That's smart.
The only other thing with Moon Knight that I wanted to bring up was in the writing, in that, you know that cliche of the villain going, yeah, that tragic thing in your backstory? Your love interest was the one who made it happen? Haha, conflict? They started to do that here, but then veered away from it almost immediately. Specifically, there's a point where Arthur Harrow tells Layla that Mark was the one who killed her father. And she storms in on Steve and demands that Mark come out. She confronts him. And it starts out as the standard writer's easy way to introduce instant conflict between the leads.
Mm-hmm.
But then moves away from that like 90 seconds later.
Yeah, abruptly.
And
very abruptly.
yeah. And I was just so relieved. Because I was sitting there like, you're almost going so cliche. And then you don't do it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for not doing it.
They're knowingly skirting cliche, and I loved when the shot transitioned to being from the cheesy, low budget straight to VHS film that appears that apparently he got the character Steven from, or at least that's the assertion. Yeah. I love that suddenly the TV looked like what was on my television looked like first season of SG-1 mixed with a random episode of Xena Warrior Princess at the budget level of Relic Hunter. And it's just, what is happening? This looks terrible. I love it. I love all of it.
Just the simple fact that they went so far as to change the aspect ratio. Respect for this. Respect.
And the second Steven comes on camera, my mind immediately just screamed, that's a budget Daniel Jackson. That is less than Michael Shanks. That would have been hilarious. Just Michael Shanks shows up like spouting history bullshit. It was just, bravo. I would have stood up and started clapping in my own living room. But what we got was still absolutely fantastic.
And also with the mental ward sequence, specifically, we haven't mentioned the sarcophagi, which was interesting as hell.
Yes, yeah. I love the idea that he pulls Steven out of the sarcophagi. So it's like, okay, you've locked away this character, this other version of yourselves. But then there's the third one that they don't
there's
touch at all.
Another one that they both ignore.
And it's a woman, so theoretically it would be Layla, but she's already represented in the ward. She's already there, so
she's already there going full Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club.
Yeah, she's doing very good. It's funny how the actress reminds me of like different people throughout. This episode, I got a lot of Maybe Bluth out of her. In the last episode, there was a ton of Evelyn O'Connell from her. You know, it's funny how they keep playing into these character roles, but she herself is able to embody those characters and their manic mannerisms for just brief flashes of a moment, that she's not doing like an impression of them. You just have this momentary lapse into those characters, and that's all you need. You suddenly know exactly like the motivation or the mind space that they're in.
Oh, I mean, make no mistake, Marvel needs to keep her contact info handy and do more with her.
She truly is a delight, and in a show of fantastic performances and just hands down ridiculous moments, she steals the show every time she's on screen. And if you're doing that alongside Academy Award winners and Oscar Isaac, who is just pure sex, and the guy who killed Mozart, you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on Real Geeks Presents The B-Roll. This is always a really fun way to wrap up a week, I find.
Oh, it's therapeutic as hell, if nothing else.
Right? If nothing else, we
Yeah.
just get to yell about bullshit, and if anything positive, we get to celebrate some great nerdity. It's just the best. And if you enjoy it, please like, share, and subscribe. And God, pass us around. Give us a rating. Leave a comment. Send us an email. Mike, what's that email address? I can never remember.
Well, the email address is realgeekshfx@gmail.com, where you can send us any questions, comments, compliments, input, insults, corrections, and I emphasize corrections specifically because I have to jump to our Twitter at realgeekshfx, where at lawyer girl Chinyer Ezi, I believe is how it's pronounced, did point out a couple of things that had kind of slipped our minds in our Everything Everywhere All at Once review. Specifically, our debate over the name of the film actress version of Evelyn, which was actually Evelyn Kwan, not Wong. And an extra shout out to the butt plug guys, which I kind of want to be a hashtag. Now, that brother duo is also the Marshall Club, who did all the fight choreography. So not only did these guys willingly do fight scenes with things up their butts, they choreographed it themselves.
That's commitment. That's integrity. That's talent. That's also really fucking hilarious. Thank you so much for sending those corrections in, and shout outs to all of them. Thank you so much. You're so awesome.
Yeah, this is specifically why we want the email. We want the responses on social media. I thoroughly just enjoy this interaction.
And based on the film that we're going to be reviewing on Monday, hopefully there's going to be more interaction. Mike, bless us with the good news. Tell the people what we're doing.
Next up, and I cannot describe just how much I have been looking forward to this. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring Nicolas Cage as Nick Cage. So we have one of the greatest and most committed actors in Hollywood playing the internet meme of one of the greatest and most committed actors in all of Hollywood.
And after that episode, we're probably not going to bother to record anymore because, seriously, how can you do better? Where do you go from there? There is nowhere you can go. Everything else from there on is crap.
Pack up the microphones, shut down the accounts, everybody go home, we're done.
Ah, I can't wait.
But subscribe anyway, we're not actually done.
We'll keep bitching about even shittier films. Hooray! See ya Monday, everyone.
See ya.